Welcome to Soft Spoken Mysteries, where we explore the most fascinating achievements and enigmas from human history. If you're enjoying these deep dives into the wonders of our past, please like this video and follow the channel for daily stories that celebrate human ingenuity and capability. Today, we're journeying to the depths of the Mediterranean Sea, to a discovery so extraordinary that it rewrote everything we thought we knew about ancient technology. In 1900, a team of Greek sponge divers made their living plunging into the dangerous waters off the coast of Antikythera, a small rocky island between mainland Greece and Crete. These weren't recreational divers. They were professionals who descended over 100 feet wearing heavy canvas suits, breathing through rubber tubes connected to hand-pumped air from the surface. One wrong move, one equipment failure, and they wouldn't come back up. On one dive, Captain Dimitrios Kontos and his crew discovered something remarkable at 150 feet below the surface. What they found would change archaeology forever. Among the bronze statues, marble sculptures, pottery and jewellery scattered across the seafloor lay a corroded lump of bronze and wood. It looked like nothing special, just another piece of debris from an ancient shipwreck. They brought it up anyway, along with everything else they could salvage. That corroded lump sat in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens for months, largely ignored among the more impressive statues and artefacts. Then in May 1902, Greek archaeologist Valerios Stais was examining the artefacts in a museum workroom when the lump suddenly split open. What he saw inside stopped him cold. Gears. Precisely cut bronze gears, some no larger than coins, with teeth about 1 millimeter long. The ancient Greeks weren't supposed to have technology like this. Historical records suggested they only made crude wheels for windmills and watermills. Nothing precise, nothing sophisticated, nothing like what Stais was looking at. The initial reaction from the academic community was skepticism. Some scholars suggested the mechanism must be from a later period, perhaps medieval, accidentally mixed with the ancient artifacts. The precision seemed too advanced for the 2nd century BCE. Others proposed it might be a modern intrusion, a more recent object that somehow ended up in the collection. The idea that ancient Greeks could create such sophisticated gearing challenged fundamental assumptions about technological development. But Stais was certain. The patina on the bronze matched the other artifacts from the wreck. The corrosion patterns were consistent with long submersion in seawater. The barnacles and marine growth attached to it were ancient. Most importantly, examination of other artifacts from the same wreck provided dates that placed the shipwreck firmly in the 1st century BCE. The mechanism wasn't a later addition or a modern contamination. It was genuinely ancient. This was a device, an impossibly complex device, with over 30 interlocking bronze gears housed in a wooden frame about the size of a shoebox. The precision of the gearwork would have required measurement techniques and steady craftsmanship that seemed centuries ahead of its time, and yet there it was, real, tangible, impossible to dismiss. The corroded bronze had preserved enough detail to see that someone, more than 2,000 years ago, had built what we now call the world's first analog computer, the Antikythera Mechanism. The shock of this discovery cannot be overstated. Imagine being a scholar in 1902, familiar with the accepted narrative of technological progress. You know ancient Greeks built impressive stone monuments. You know they were brilliant philosophers and mathematicians. But sophisticated geared mechanisms? Those belong to the medieval period and beyond. The very existence of the Antikythera mechanism was anachronistic, a technological impossibility made real. For decades, scholars struggled to understand what they were looking at. How could ancient Greeks, whose most advanced known technology involved simple machines and basic engineering, create something this sophisticated? The mechanism predated any known geared device by over a millennium. Medieval cathedral clocks, the next comparable technology, wouldn't appear until the 1300s. That's a 1,000-year gap, a millennium of lost knowledge. The discovery challenged everything historians thought they knew about ancient technological capability. The device dated to approximately 100 BCE, give or take 30 years, based on the other artifacts found in the wreck. This meant that during the late Hellenistic period, when Rome was rising to dominate the Mediterranean and Greek city-states were producing some of history's greatest philosophers, mathematicians and scientists, someone had the knowledge and skill to create a mechanical calculator that could predict the motions of the heavens with stunning accuracy. Who built it? Why? And most importantly, how? Let's establish the context of this achievement. Ancient Greece in the 2nd century BCE was not a unified nation, but a collection of city-states and kingdoms, each with its own culture, politics, and intellectual tradition. The Great Library of Alexandria in Egypt housed hundreds of thousands of scrolls. The Museum of Alexandria functioned as the world's first research institution, where scholars from across the Mediterranean world gathered to study mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and engineering. Rhodes, an island not far from Antikythera, was home to the Colossus, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The Lighthouse of Alexandria guided ships with its towering beacon. These weren't primitive societies. They were sophisticated civilizations with advanced knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and mechanics. Greek astronomers had been observing the heavens for centuries. They knew the Earth was round. They'd calculated its circumference to remarkable accuracy. They understood eclipses, planetary motion, and the complex dance of celestial bodies. Philosophers like Plato and Aristotle had developed sophisticated cosmological theories. Mathematicians like Euclid had laid the foundations of geometry. Archimedes had invented the screw pump, compound pulley systems, and war machines that helped defend Syracuse from Roman siege. The intellectual foundation was there, but translating astronomical knowledge into mechanical precision was something entirely different. The Antikythera Mechanism represents that translation. It's the physical embodiment of Greek astronomical understanding, mathematical sophistication, and mechanical genius all working together. When you held this device in your hands, when you turned its crank, you weren't just looking at gears spinning. You were watching a mechanical model of the cosmos unfold before your eyes, calculated with mathematical precision, displayed with artistic beauty, functioning as a bridge between human understanding and the movements of the heavens. Now let's dive deep into what this device actually did, how it worked, and why it represents an achievement so sophisticated that modern engineers still marvel at its design. The mechanism was housed in a wooden case, probably made of boxwood, with bronze plates on the front and back. The wood has long since decayed, but traces remain. The case dimensions were approximately 34 centimeters tall, 18 centimeters wide, and 9 centimeters deep. Imagine something slightly larger than a modern hardback book, portable, designed to be carried and used, not a monumental structure, but a precision instrument meant for hands-on interaction. On the front face of the device, you would have seen a large circular dial dominated by 2 concentric ring scales. The outer ring showed the zodiac, the 12 constellations through which the sun, moon, and planets appear to move from Earth's perspective. Each constellation was divided into precise degree markings. The inner ring displayed the Egyptian calendar, a 365-day solar calendar that the Greeks used alongside their own lunar calendar. Rotating pointer hands, now lost but described in inscriptions on the mechanism itself, moved across these dials to show the positions of celestial bodies. One pointer showed the position of the sun. Ancient texts found on the mechanism called it the little golden sphere with pointer. Made of gilded bronze, it would have gleamed as it tracked the sun's annual journey through the zodiac. Another pointer displayed the moon's position, complete with a rotating sphere that showed lunar phases. When the sun and moon pointers aligned, the sphere showed black for new moon. When they were opposite, the sphere showed white for full moon. The visual representation wasn't just functional, it was beautiful. Astronomical accuracy presented as mechanical art. But here's where it gets truly remarkable. The mechanism didn't just track the sun and moon, it tracked all 5 planets known to the ancient world: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Each planet had its own pointer, its own mechanical pathway through the gears, its own precisely calculated movement. The Greeks knew these planets didn't move in simple circles. From Earth's perspective, planets sometimes appear to move backward through the sky, a phenomenon called retrograde motion. They speed up and slow down. Their paths are complex, irregular, challenging to predict without modern understanding of orbital mechanics. The ancient Greeks explained this through epicycles, a 2-circle theory where planets moved on small circles that themselves moved on larger circles. It was mathematically complex but geometrically elegant. And somehow, the makers of the Antikythera Mechanism translated these epicyclic theories into mechanical reality using epicyclic gear trains with pin and slot mechanisms that displayed the planet's variable motions with stunning accuracy. They built a 3-dimensional mechanical model of ancient Greek cosmology, small enough to hold in your hands. Turn to the back of the device and you'd find 2 large spiral dials, each serving a different function. The upper dial was a calendar system based on the Metonic cycle, a 19-year period after which the phases of the moon repeat on the same calendar dates. This cycle, known to Babylonian astronomers centuries earlier, was incorporated into Greek timekeeping. The mechanism's dial had 5 turns of a spiral, with each turn divided into sections corresponding to the months of the Greek calendar. A small pin followed the spiral groove like a needle on a record player, marking the passage of time with mechanical precision. The lower dial on the back was even more sophisticated. It predicted eclipses. Using a 223-month cycle discovered by Babylonian astronomers called the Saros cycle, the mechanism could tell you when to expect solar and lunar eclipses years into the future. The dial had 4 turns of a spiral, divided into 223 sections. Additional inscriptions indicated whether an eclipse would be solar or lunar, and even gave information about eclipse times during both day and night. This wasn't approximation. This was precise astronomical prediction, achieved through mechanical calculation. Inside the wooden case, hidden from view, but essential to every function, were the gears. At least 30 gears survive in the fragments we have, and researchers believe the complete mechanism had more, perhaps as many as 40 or more gears working together in synchronized harmony. These weren't rough castings hammered out by unskilled labourers. They were precisely cut bronze gears with triangular teeth about 1 millimetre long, each tooth shaped to mesh smoothly with the next gear in the train. The level of precision would have required incredibly accurate measurement techniques. We're talking about tolerances that challenge even skilled modern machinists. Think about what creating these gears actually required. First, you need to calculate the exact number of teeth each gear should have, based on the astronomical ratios you're trying to represent. This is pure mathematics. Then you need to determine the size of each gear. Too large and the mechanism becomes unwieldy. Too small and the teeth become impossibly delicate. You're optimizing for multiple constraints simultaneously: accuracy, size, durability, and manufacturability. Once you've designed the gears, you need to actually make them. Bronze must be cast or cut to shape. The teeth must be uniform in size and spacing. Ancient craftspeople probably used dividing techniques, marking the gear's circumference into equal divisions before cutting each tooth. Any error in division propagates through the entire gear. A gear with 223 teeth, like one of the eclipse prediction gears, requires dividing a circle into 223 equal parts. Try doing that with ancient tools and see how precise you can be. The triangular tooth profile is itself sophisticated. Modern gears typically use involute tooth profiles, a shape that provides smooth, even contact as gears mesh. The ancient Greeks didn't know about involute geometry in the way we do, but they discovered through experience that triangular teeth worked well in bronze. The angled faces of triangular teeth distribute force across the tooth, reducing stress at any single point. This is practical engineering informed by materials science, even if they didn't use those terms. Each gear needed an axle hole precisely centered. Off-center axles cause wobble, uneven wear, and cumulative errors in output. Drilling these holes required steady hands and accurate measurement. The axles themselves, probably bronze or iron pins, needed to be straight and uniform in diameter. They needed to rotate smoothly in their bearings, which were probably bronze bushings fitted into the wooden frame. Friction had to be minimized. Alignment had to be maintained. These are challenges that modern ball bearings solve easily, but ancient craftspeople had to manage with simpler materials and methods. The main gear, the largest in the mechanism, had 4 spokes and would have rotated once per solar year. Connected to it by a crown gear was a hand crank on the side of the device. Turn the crank forward and you'd advance time into the future, watching the pointers move to show where celestial bodies would be. Turn it backward and you'd move into the past, seeing where they had been. The mechanism was a time machine in the truest sense, allowing its user to navigate through years of astronomical data with the turn of a handle. But how the gears achieved their functions reveals the true genius of the design. Consider the moon mechanism, one of the most sophisticated components. The moon doesn't travel around Earth at a constant speed. As we know today from Kepler's laws of planetary motion, orbits are elliptical, and bodies move faster when closer to what they're orbiting. The ancient Greeks didn't know about elliptical orbits. They believed in perfect circles, but they knew the moon's speed varied. Babylonian astronomers had documented this variation for centuries. The Antikythera Mechanism used a special train of bronze gears, 2 of them linked with a slightly offset axis, to model the moon's variable motion. This epicyclic gear arrangement created the mathematical effect of varying speed, even though all the gears turned at constant rates. Its elegant mathematical thinking translated into mechanical form. The varying gear ratios produced a pointer movement that accurately reflected the moon's actual motion across the sky, including its changing speed. This is engineering informed by deep mathematical understanding. For the planets, the challenge was even greater. Each planet has its own complex pattern of motion. Venus and Mars show dramatic retrograde loops. Jupiter and Saturn move more slowly. Mercury zips quickly around, but with significant variation. Inscriptions on the device's front cover reveal critical numbers: 462 years for Venus and 442 years for Saturn. These represent synodic cycles, the time it takes for each planet to return to the same position relative to Earth and the Sun. The accuracy of these numbers is remarkable. Ancient Greek astronomers, through careful observation over generations, had calculated these cycles with extraordinary precision. Researchers believe the mechanism used these cycle numbers to create gear ratios that accurately represented each planet's motion. For Venus, a 462-year cycle meant that 462 years of Earth time corresponded to a specific number of Venus cycles. By creating gear trains with the right ratios, the mechanism could translate the turn of the main yearly gear into the correct position for Venus on any given date. The same principle applied to all 5 planets. Different gear trains, different ratios, all synchronized through the main drive wheel, all working together to display a complete model of the ancient Greek cosmos. What makes this even more impressive is how they achieved these complex ratios using prime factors. Recent research by Tony Freeth and the University College London Antikythera research team discovered that the gear designers used small prime factors, particularly 7 and 17, that could be shared among different planetary gear trains. This wasn't random, it was sophisticated mathematical optimization. By finding gear ratios that shared common factors, they could reduce the number of gears needed and simplify the overall mechanism while maintaining astronomical accuracy. It's the kind of elegant engineering solution that comes from deep understanding of both the astronomical problem and the mechanical constraints. The inscriptions on the mechanism provide additional clues to its function and sophistication. Over 3,000 Greek letters have been deciphered from the corroded bronze surfaces using modern X-ray computed tomography. These inscriptions weren't decorative, they were functional. User instructions, astronomical explanations, labels for different components. One inscription describes how the eclipse dial works, explaining the Saros cycle and how to read eclipse predictions. Another describes the parapegma, a type of astronomical calendar that noted the rising and setting of important stars and constellations used for agricultural timing and navigation. These texts reveal that the mechanism's creators understood their device intimately and wanted users to understand it too. They engraved detailed explanations in lettering so small it would have required exceptional eyesight or magnification to read comfortably. The care taken in these inscriptions matches the care taken in the mechanical construction. Every aspect of the device, from the largest gear to the smallest inscription, was executed with attention to detail that speaks to both scientific understanding and craftsmanship pride. Who could have built such a device? This question has puzzled researchers for over a century. The level of astronomical knowledge required points to connections with major centres of Greek learning: the Library of Alexandria, the Museum of Alexandria, the astronomical schools of Rhodes, the workshops of Syracuse, where Archimedes worked. These were places where the necessary knowledge existed. The mechanical skill required suggests workshops with traditions of precision bronze working, experienced craftspeople who could cut gears to tolerances of fractions of a millimetre, who understood gear ratios and mechanical advantage, who could translate mathematical concepts into physical form. One strong candidate for the mechanism's origin is the island of Rhodes. The calendar inscribed on the Metonic spiral dial has been identified as Corinthian, and Rhodes was a Corinthian colony. The astronomer Hipparchus, one of the greatest observational astronomers of antiquity, worked in Rhodes around the time the mechanism was built. He's credited with discovering the precession of the equinoxes and creating the first comprehensive star catalogue. His mathematical and astronomical expertise would have been exactly what was needed to design a device like this. The philosopher Posidonius, who lived in Rhodes during the 1st century BCE, was known to have created a sphere that demonstrated the motions of the sun, moon, and planets. According to the Roman statesman Cicero, the connection to Rhodes is compelling. Syracuse is another possibility. This was the home of Archimedes, perhaps the greatest engineer and mathematician of ancient Greece. Archimedes died in 212 BCE during the Roman siege of Syracuse, but his reputation for creating mechanical devices was legendary. Cicero wrote about Archimedes creating devices that demonstrated astronomical motions. If the tradition of creating such mechanisms began with Archimedes, the Antikythera device could represent a later evolution of his ideas, built by craftspeople who inherited his techniques and knowledge. The Roman ship that carried the mechanism may have been transporting it from Syracuse or another Greek city to Rome, where wealthy Romans were eager to acquire Greek art and technology. The wreck itself offers some clues. The ship that sank near Antikythera was a large merchant vessel, probably over 40 meters long, carrying a mixed cargo: bronze and marble statues, luxury glassware, fine pottery, coins minted in the 1st century BCE. This was valuable cargo destined for elite customers. The mechanism would have fit perfectly among these luxury goods. It wasn't a tool for everyday use, it was a prestige object, a demonstration of Greek intellectual and technical achievement, possibly commissioned by someone wealthy enough to afford such sophisticated craftsmanship. Recent underwater archaeology at the Antikythera site has revealed even more. In 2024, excavations recovered substantial portions of the ship's hull, the first complete sections ever found. These wooden planks show advanced shipbuilding techniques with copper pins and lead coating for protection. The discovery of a second wreck site nearby suggests this was a treacherous passage where multiple ships foundered. The 2024 expedition also found over 300 additional artifacts, including more statue fragments and pottery that help date the wreck more precisely. The evidence points to a ship that sank sometime between 70 and 60 BCE, caught by a storm while navigating the dangerous waters between the Greek mainland and Crete. Now let's address one of the most fascinating aspects of the Antikythera mechanism: how advanced research techniques are still revealing new information over a century after its discovery. In 2005, researchers used high-resolution X-ray computed tomography, the same technology used in medical CT scans, to peer inside the corroded fragments without damaging them further. These scans revealed gears and inscriptions previously hidden within layers of bronze corrosion. The level of detail was extraordinary, showing the profile of individual gear teeth, the layout of gear trains, text that hadn't been read in 2,000 years. In 2021, the University College London team, led by Tony Freeth, published what they called the most complete reconstruction yet of the mechanism's front face, the Cosmos display that showed planetary motions. They created a theoretical model that incorporated all the physical evidence, all the inscriptions, all the astronomical knowledge available in ancient Greece. Their model proposed a complex system of nested coaxial tubes, one inside another, each carrying a different planetary pointer, all driven by interconnected gear trains below. It's mechanically ingenious and would have required exceptional precision to manufacture. But there's a challenge. Creating such nested tubes with ancient technology pushes the limits of what we think Greek metalworkers could achieve. Modern machinists use lathes to create precise cylindrical forms. What tools did ancient Greeks have that could produce the required precision? This is where experimental archaeology becomes crucial. Researchers are now trying to recreate the mechanism using only techniques and tools available in ancient Greece. Can it be done? The answer will tell us something profound about the limits of ancient technical capability. In 2024, researchers from the University of Glasgow used an unexpected approach to understand the mechanism better. They applied statistical techniques originally developed for analysing gravitational waves from black holes and neutron stars to study one of the broken rings on the mechanism's back. This calendar ring had regularly spaced holes beneath it, but the ring was incomplete, so the total number of holes was unknown. Using Bayesian statistical analysis, they calculated that the ring most likely contained 354 holes, corresponding to a lunar calendar year, with a probability hundreds of times higher than a 365-hole solar calendar. They also determined that the holes were positioned with extraordinary precision, with an average variation of only 0.028 millimeters. That's precision that would challenge skilled craftspeople even today. This finding sparked debate among researchers. Tony Freeth disagreed, arguing that the mechanism was too sophisticated to use a crude lunar calendar when more accurate systems were available. This is the nature of cutting-edge research. As new analysis techniques reveal new details, interpretations shift and compete. What's certain is that the ancient craftspeople who made this device possessed skills and knowledge that continue to surprise modern researchers equipped with technology the ancient Greeks couldn't have imagined. There's another intriguing discovery from 2025. A team of Argentinian scientists created a computer simulation of the mechanism that incorporated not just the ideal design, but also the real-world imperfections present in the surviving gears. Ancient manufacturing couldn't achieve perfect precision. Gears would have slight variations, teeth wouldn't be perfectly uniform, alignments wouldn't be exactly right. When these imperfections are included in the simulation, something interesting happens. The mechanism's accuracy decreases significantly over time. Errors accumulate. Predictions drift from reality. Does this mean the mechanism didn't work as well as we thought? Perhaps. Or perhaps it means the device required regular calibration and adjustment, like a mechanical watch that needs periodic winding and correction. The builders might have understood these limitations and designed the mechanism with maintenance in mind. Users would set it to the current astronomical positions periodically, using actual observations to correct accumulated errors. This would make it a tool that combined mechanical calculation with ongoing observational astronomy, a hybrid approach that leveraged both the mechanism's computing power and human observation. This raises a profound question about the mechanism's purpose. Was it a practical astronomical tool used for calculations and predictions? Was it an educational device used to teach astronomical concepts? Was it a demonstration piece meant to showcase Greek intellectual and technical achievement? Or was it all of these things? The precision of its construction suggests serious functionality. The beauty of its design suggests display value. The complexity of its inscriptions suggests educational intent. It could have served multiple purposes for different users in different contexts. Consider how it might have been used. An astronomer could use it to quickly determine planetary positions for a given date, eliminating hours of manual calculation. A navigator could use the eclipse predictions to plan voyages around dangerous sea conditions that ancient sailors associated with eclipses. A teacher could use the mechanical model to explain complex astronomical concepts to students, showing how epicycles produced retrograde motion, how the moon's speed varied, how eclipse cycles worked. A wealthy patron could display it as a symbol of learning and sophistication, demonstrating access to the finest Greek craftsmanship and scientific knowledge. The mechanism also tells us something important about ancient technology that has been lost. This device is unique. We've never found another like it. No archaeological evidence of similar mechanisms exists. No ancient texts describe other examples in detail. Yet the sophistication of the Antikythera mechanism makes it clear this couldn't have been the first device of its kind. You don't create something this complex and refined on your first attempt. There must have been earlier versions, simpler prototypes, a tradition of mechanical astronomy that developed over time. Where are these other devices? Bronze was valuable. When something broke or became obsolete, the bronze would typically be melted down and reused. Objects that served primarily as demonstration pieces or educational tools might have limited lifespans, especially during times of war, conquest, or economic hardship. The Antikythera mechanism survived only because it ended up at the bottom of the sea, protected from scavenging and melting. How many similar devices existed and were lost to time? The Roman author Cicero, writing in the 1st century BCE, mentioned devices created by Archimedes and Posidonius that demonstrated celestial motions. Cicero described these as remarkable achievements, devices that could show the movements of the sun and moon and those 5 planets which are called wandering stars. He was clearly describing something like the Antikythera Mechanism. This means educated Romans knew such devices existed and considered them impressive examples of Greek technical skill. If Cicero knew about them, others did too. These mechanisms weren't secrets, they were recognized achievements of Greek scientific and technical culture. What happened to this knowledge? Why did the tradition of creating such devices disappear? The fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century CAE disrupted many technical and scientific traditions. The great libraries were destroyed or dispersed. The network of skilled workshops that maintained complex technologies fragmented. Knowledge that had been passed through master-apprentice relationships died with the last generation of craftspeople who possessed it. The medieval period in Europe saw much ancient knowledge preserved only in Arabic translations, kept alive in the Islamic world, while Europe descended into relative technological and scientific stagnation. When mechanical clocks emerged in medieval Europe around 1300 CE, they were revolutionary technologies. Historians celebrated them as unprecedented achievements, yet they were actually reinventions, rediscoveries of principles that the ancient Greeks had mastered over 1,000 years earlier. The Antikythera Mechanism proves that the capability to create complex gear-driven calculating devices existed in antiquity. The knowledge was lost and had to be recovered through independent innovation centuries later. This is one of history's great technological discontinuities, a reminder that progress isn't linear and that advanced knowledge can be forgotten. Let's consider the astronomical knowledge embedded in the mechanism. The precision of the planetary periods inscribed on the device reflects centuries of careful observation by Greek and Babylonian astronomers. Tracking Venus through its 462-year cycle required observational records spanning multiple generations. No single astronomer could verify such a cycle in a lifetime. This was collaborative science, knowledge built up over time, passed between generations, refined through continued observation. The mechanism embodies this accumulated wisdom, this multi-generational project of understanding the cosmos. Consider what tracking Venus actually required. Every evening, you go outside and note Venus's position relative to background stars. You record whether it's visible, its brightness, its angular distance from other reference points. You do this night after night, month after month, year after year. You compare your observations with records kept by your predecessors. You notice patterns. Venus disappears into the sun's glare, then reappears. It shows phases like the moon, though ancient observers couldn't see the phases directly, without telescopes. It moves in its complex dance against the starry background, sometimes racing ahead, sometimes slowing, occasionally appearing to move backward. Over decades and centuries, patterns emerge from the noise. Venus returns to the same position relative to Earth and the Sun after specific periods. The synodic period, the time between one opposition and the next, could be calculated, but getting a precise number requires many cycles of observation. Errors in individual measurements need to be averaged out. Variations caused by other factors need to be identified and corrected. This is systematic, careful, scientific observation of the highest caliber. The Babylonians excelled at this kind of patient observational astronomy. They kept detailed astronomical diaries, recording daily observations. These records went back centuries. When Greek astronomers began seriously studying the heavens in the centuries before the mechanism was built, they had access to this Babylonian data. They could analyze patterns the Babylonians had documented, but not fully explained. Greek geometrical thinking, combined with Babylonian observational data, created a powerful synthesis. The 462-year cycle for Venus, encoded in the mechanism, represents this synthesis. It's not a number you guess. It's not even a number you derive from pure theory. It's a number you discover through analysis of long-term observational data, then confirm through mathematical modeling. The precision of this number tells us that someone had access to centuries of Venus observations and the mathematical skill to extract meaningful patterns from that data. That's sophisticated data analysis by any standard, ancient or modern. The mathematical sophistication required to design the gear trains is equally impressive. Calculating gear ratios that accurately represent planetary motions requires deep understanding of fractions, prime factorization, and numerical approximation. The designers had to find ways to represent irrational astronomical periods using rational gear ratios. They had to optimize these ratios to minimize the number of gears while maintaining accuracy. They had to understand how errors propagate through gear trains and design systems that minimized cumulative error. This is advanced applied mathematics made physical. The mechanical engineering challenges were formidable. Bronze is not easy to work with precision. It's relatively soft compared to modern steel, which means gears can wear quickly, if not properly designed. The triangular tooth profile used in the mechanism's gears is actually well suited to bronze construction, distributing force across the tooth face to reduce wear. The choice of bronze composition, the heat treatment processes, the surface finishing techniques, all of these would have required expertise developed through experience and experimentation. Modern researchers attempting to recreate the mechanism using ancient tools have gained enormous respect for the skills of ancient craftspeople. The precision required to cut gear teeth consistently, to drill and align axle holes, to assemble components so they mesh smoothly, all of this demands not just knowledge, but practice, experience, steady hands, and sharp eyes. The makers of the Antikythera Mechanism were masters of their craft, working at the absolute pinnacle of what ancient technology could achieve. There's beauty in the mechanism beyond its function. The choice to display the cosmos as a series of rotating pointers on dial faces rather than some other representation shows aesthetic consideration. The gilded sun pointer, the phase-changing moon sphere, the careful organization of scales and inscriptions. These aren't just functional choices, they're design choices that prioritize elegance and visual clarity. The device was meant to be understood and appreciated, not just as a tool, but as an object of beauty that represented the order and harmony of the heavens. This connects to a broader theme in Greek philosophy and science. The Greeks believed the cosmos was rational, that it operated according to mathematical principles that human reason could comprehend. The mechanism is a physical expression of this belief. By creating a mechanical model that accurately reproduced celestial motions, the makers demonstrated that human intelligence could understand and replicate the workings of the heavens. It was philosophy made mechanical, cosmology you could hold in your hands. The influence of Babylonian astronomy on the mechanism is particularly fascinating. The Saros eclipse cycle, the mathematical approaches to planetary periods, the observational data that informed the design, much of this came from Babylonian sources. But the Greeks didn't just adopt Babylonian knowledge wholesale, they transformed it. They added their own geometrical theories, their epicyclic models, their mechanical ingenuity. The Antikythera Mechanism represents a synthesis, a fusion of Near Eastern observational astronomy with Greek theoretical innovation and mechanical execution. This cross-cultural exchange of knowledge is itself remarkable. In the ancient world, despite wars, political divisions, and cultural differences, scientific and technical knowledge flowed between civilizations. Greek scholars studied in Alexandria, where Egyptian, Babylonian, and Greek traditions mixed. Merchants carried ideas along with goods. The mechanism embodies this cosmopolitan exchange, this ancient globalization of knowledge that enriched everyone who participated in it. Now let's address what might be the mechanism's most profound implication. Its existence fundamentally changes our understanding of ancient capabilities. Before its discovery, historians assumed ancient technology peaked with basic machines, levers, pulleys, screws, wedges, simple tools for simple tasks. The mechanism proves this assumption was wrong. Ancient Greeks possessed the knowledge and skills to create sophisticated calculating devices, precision gearing, complex mechanical systems. They were far more capable than we gave them credit for. This raises uncomfortable questions about other lost technologies. What else could they do that we don't know about? What other sophisticated devices existed and disappeared without trace? How many times in history has advanced knowledge been lost forgotten, only to be painstakingly rediscovered centuries later. The Antikythera Mechanism is the one device that survived, but it probably wasn't unique in its time. It was the product of a technological tradition, and traditions don't emerge fully formed. They develop gradually, building on earlier achievements refined through experience. The mechanism also changes our perspective on ancient science. We sometimes imagine ancient thinkers as purely theoretical, dealing in abstract philosophy without practical application. The mechanism proves this is false. Ancient Greeks could translate astronomical theory into mechanical reality. They built their science into working devices. They were engineer scientists, combining theoretical understanding with practical skills. This is closer to modern scientific methodology than we might expect from people living 2,000 years ago. Consider what the mechanism tells us about ancient education and knowledge transmission. Creating this device required expertise in astronomy, mathematics, mechanical engineering, bronze working, and probably more. No single person would have possessed all these skills. The mechanism represents collaboration, a team of specialists working together. An astronomer to provide the theoretical foundation, a mathematician to calculate gear ratios, an engineer to design the mechanical layout, skilled craftspeople to execute the construction. This kind of collaborative technical project requires organization, shared vocabulary, division of labor, quality control. It's sophisticated project management in the ancient world. The inscriptions on the mechanism support this interpretation. They're written in precise technical Greek, describing complex concepts clearly and accurately. Someone took the time to create these instructions to ensure users could understand and operate the device properly. This suggests the mechanism was meant to be used by people other than its creators, that it was a technology meant to spread beyond its point of origin. Knowledge was being shared, not hoarded. Expertise was being communicated, not kept secret. This is the behavior of a mature scientific and technical culture. What happened to the person or people carrying this mechanism when the ship sank? Were they on board? Did they survive? The ship went down in a storm, probably suddenly given the scattered nature of the wreck site. There's no evidence that anyone made it to shore. The mechanism, along with the statues, pottery and other cargo, dropped to the seabed, where it would remain for nearly 2,000 years, corroding slowly in the salt water, its bronze turning green, its wooden case disintegrating, its gears fusing together into a solid lump that hid its sophistication from casual observation. The divers who found it in 1900 couldn't have known what they'd discovered. They were looking for commercial salvage, items they could sell. The bronze statues were obviously valuable. The mechanism just looks like scrap. If Valerios Stice hadn't been examining it in 1902, if it hadn't split open at that exact moment to reveal the gears inside, it might have remained unrecognized. A crucial piece of evidence for ancient technological capability could have been overlooked, misidentified, even discarded. We came very close to never knowing the mechanism existed. This makes you wonder what else might be sitting in museum collections, misunderstood or unrecognized. What other artifacts might contain evidence of lost technologies? Archaeology is a process of discovery and interpretation, and interpretations change as new analysis techniques become available. The mechanism has been studied for over a century, yet researchers are still finding new details, still developing new theories about its function and construction. This is the nature of historical research. We're always learning, always refining our understanding, always open to being surprised by evidence that challenges our assumptions. The modern replicas of the mechanism built by researchers tell their own story. Multiple teams have created working reconstructions using various approaches. Some use modern tools to demonstrate what the mechanism could have done if it worked as designed. Others try to replicate it using only ancient techniques to test whether such construction was possible. Each replica adds to our understanding. When you see a working model in operation, when you turn the crank and watch the pointers move through their complex dance, you gain visceral appreciation for the achievement. It's not just theoretical, it's tangible. You can see the gears mesh, hear them click, watch the mechanical cosmos unfold. These replicas also reveal the challenges. Getting all the gears to mesh smoothly requires careful adjustment. Tolerances matter. Small errors amplify through the gear trains. The mechanism's designers would have needed to test and adjust their work repeatedly, solving problems through trial and error, learning from mistakes, refining their techniques. This hands-on problem solving, this iterative improvement process, is engineering in its purest form. The ancient makers learned by doing, just as modern engineers learn by building prototypes. In recent years, the mechanism has captured popular imagination in new ways. It appeared in the 2023 Indiana Jones film as a time travel device, obviously a fictional treatment, but one that speaks to the mechanism's mystery and wonder. Documentary films, books, museum exhibits, YouTube videos, all exploring different aspects of its history, function, and significance. The mechanism has become a symbol of ancient achievement, proof that our ancestors were capable of far more than we sometimes assume. This brings us to the heart of what makes the Antikythera Mechanism so significant. It's not just a fascinating artifact, though it certainly is that. It's not just a testament to Greek technical skill, though it demonstrates that abundantly. It's a reminder that human ingenuity, creativity, and determination to understand the world are timeless qualities. The ancient Greeks who designed and built this mechanism were driven by the same curiosity that drives modern scientists and engineers. They wanted to understand how things worked. They wanted to predict and model the natural world. They wanted to create tools that expanded human capability. The mechanism failed in one sense. The tradition of creating such devices was lost. The knowledge didn't survive. Medieval Europe had to reinvent mechanical calculation independently. But the mechanism succeeded in another sense that its makers couldn't have imagined. By ending up at the bottom of the sea, protected from destruction, it preserved evidence of ancient capability that would eventually, 2,000 years later, revolutionize our understanding of ancient technology. It's a message in a bottle, sent across millennia, telling us that our ancestors were brilliant, capable, and worthy of our respect and admiration. Every time researchers discover something new about the mechanism, every time a new analysis technique reveals another layer of sophistication, we're reminded that history holds secrets we haven't yet uncovered. The past is not a closed book. There are always new pages to discover, new stories to tell, new reasons to marvel at what humans have achieved. The mechanism is one device, one artifact, one amazing discovery. But it represents countless other achievements, other devices, other innovations that existed in the ancient world and have been lost to time. What can we learn from the Antikythera mechanism today? First, that assumptions about the past need to be questioned. When physical evidence contradicts our expectations, we need to revise our understanding, not dismiss the evidence. Second, that knowledge can be lost. Technological and scientific capability isn't guaranteed to progress linearly. Without active effort to preserve and transmit knowledge, it can disappear. Third, that ancient peoples were every bit as intelligent, curious, and capable as modern people. They lacked our accumulated knowledge and our modern tools, but they didn't lack ingenuity, skill, or determination. The mechanism also reminds us about the value of interdisciplinary collaboration. Understanding it requires expertise in archaeology, astronomy, mathematics, mechanical engineering, materials science, computer modeling, and more. No single discipline can fully explain it. This is true for many complex problems, ancient and modern. The best understanding comes when different perspectives and different types of expertise work together, challenging and informing each other, building comprehensive understanding through collaboration. There's something deeply inspiring about holding a photograph of the mechanism's corroded gears and knowing that 2,000 years ago, someone designed this device, someone cut these gears, someone assembled these components, someone turned the crank and watched it work for the first time. That moment of achievement, that satisfaction of seeing theory become reality, that pride in craftsmanship well executed, these human experiences connect us across millennia. The ancient maker and the modern viewer share something fundamental: wonder at the complexity of the cosmos and pride in human ability to understand and model that complexity. So here we stand, over a century after Captain Dimitrios Kontos and his crew of sponge divers pulled a corroded lump of bronze from the Mediterranean seafloor, still learning from it, still being surprised by it, still marveling at the sophistication it represents. The Antikythera Mechanism is more than an ancient calculator. It's evidence that human ingenuity has always pushed the boundaries of what's possible. It's proof that our drive to understand the universe around us is ancient and enduring. It's a reminder that every age has its geniuses, its innovators, its craftspeople, who work at the absolute edge of what their technology and knowledge can achieve. The mechanism shouldn't exist. By everything we thought we knew about ancient technology, it's impossible. Yet there it sits in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, real and undeniable, its bronze gears still bearing traces of the precision that went into their creation 2,000 years ago. It exists, and because it exists, we have to expand our understanding of what the ancient world achieved. We have to acknowledge that our ancestors were capable of creating devices so sophisticated that modern engineers study them with awe and respect. That's the power of archaeological discovery. One artifact can change everything. One device can rewrite our understanding of an entire civilization's capabilities. The Antikythera Mechanism has done exactly that. It has forced us to see ancient Greece not just as a culture of philosophers and artists, though it was certainly that, but also as a civilization of engineer scientists who could translate complex astronomical theory into precise mechanical reality. They built a computer before the concept of computers existed. They created a calculator that wouldn't be matched for over 1,000 years. They achieved something that, by our previous assumptions, should have been impossible. And yet they did it. They conceived it, designed it, built it, and used it. The mechanism was real, it worked. It demonstrated that human beings, with determination and ingenuity, can accomplish the seemingly impossible. That's a message that transcends time, that speaks to us today as clearly as it spoke to the ancient Greeks, who first held this device in their hands and watched the mechanical cosmos dance before their eyes. Tomorrow, we'll explore another achievement that celebrates human capability. Another story of how our ancestors accomplished something remarkable. But today, we've stood in wonder. Before the Antikythera Mechanism, this impossible device that shouldn't exist but does, this ancient computer that reminds us that humans have always been brilliant, always been curious, always been capable of far more than we sometimes give ourselves credit for. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of history and the heights of human achievement. Until next time, keep wondering, keep asking how they did it, keep celebrating the fact that our species, for all our flaws, has this remarkable capacity to understand the world around us and to build tools that extend that understanding in ways that would have seemed like magic to earlier generations. The ancient Greeks built a cosmos in bronze and wood. That's not magic, that's human ingenuity. That's us at our best, and that's worth celebrating.